Kakapasok lang na balita, AFP Chief of Staff General Romeo Browner Jr. ginulat ang militar matapos kausapin ni Pangulong Marcos Jr. Ayon sa nakalap nating impormasyon, inuobliga ni BBM lahat ng militar na magpunta sa Camp Aguinaldo, mapakomandero general dahil may uutos ang Pangulo, pero bawal nilang i-record at bawal ilabas sa kampo. Ayon sa AFP, nakakabahala ang mga ganitong klaseng sobrang higpit na command conference para ba kasing may pinaghahandaan tayong gera matapos sabihin ni BBM sa militar na humanda ang Pinas at buong sundalo ng AFP.
I updated the President on the security threats that we're facing in the country, and when I mentioned to the President last week that we were going to have our command conference this week, siya na po mismo ang sabi that he wants to attend the command conference of the Armed Forces of the Philippines, and he wanted to give his guidance to our commanders from the field. Kasi po, ngayong araw na ito, the attendees for the AFP command conference are all the commanders in the field, from the unified commanders, the division commanders, our naval commanders, and even our Air Force commanders. Kompleto dito lahat. Not only the commanders but also the joint staff are here, and the commanders of the AFP Wide Support Units. So halos lahat po ng mga key leaders ng Armed Forces of the Philippines ay nandito ngayong umaga, and they all listen to the presentations that were given, and finally we listen to the guidance of the President. And for his guidance, ang nabanggit po ng ating Pangulo is that just like with the past announcements that he made during his speeches, he said that we needed to reconfigure our approaches to dealing with the different threat groups. We need to deal with the communist terrorist groups, the local terrorist groups, the threats that we are facing in the West Philippine Sea ay siyang nagbibigay ng challenge sa ating Armed Forces of the Philippines. At nabanggit po ng ating Pangulo that we have to think of new ways of dealing with them, innovative ways. That is why we have to really make sure that we study all of these things very carefully so that we come up with the necessary solutions.
Ikinagulat naman ng Pangulo ang ginawang pagbabanta sa kanya ng China matapos magparating ng pagbati sa bagong presidente ng Taiwan. Ayon sa Chinese Foreign Ministry, babalaki Pangulong Marcos Jr. sa hindi pagsunod sa One China policy, pero hindi takot si BBM sa babala ng China. Walang China policy.
马克思总统的有关言论严重违反一个中国原则和中非建交公报，严重违背非方对中方所做的政治承诺，粗暴干涉中国内政。中方对此强烈不满，坚决反对，已于第一时间向菲方提出强烈抗议。今天上午，农荣部长助理召见菲律宾驻华大使，提出严正交涉，敦促菲方给中方一个负责任的交代。台湾地区选举结果改变不了两岸关系基本格局和发展方向，阻挡不了中国终将统一也必然统一的大势。我们正告菲方，不要在台湾问题上玩火，切实恪守一个中国原则和中非建交公报，立即停止在涉台问题上的错误言行，停止向台独分裂势力发出任何错误信号。我们建议马克思总统多读读书，正确了解台湾问题的来龙去脉，从而得出正确的结论。
Pero ayon kay Renato De Castro, defense analyst ng Pilipinas, walang karapatan ng spokesperson na pagbantaan si BBM sa China dahil di tayo makikialam sa kanilang mga issue. Babala ni Renato sa China.
Should be the next steps of this Philippine government? How should we respond to these remarks of China that we are in grave violation of the One China principle and breaching Philippines' political commitment to China, and what could potentially be the repercussions of bilateral relations?
First of all, we have to take in the fact that this is not specific to the Philippines. That China also lashed at the United States. China also lashed, of course, against Japan. You have to understand the context. China simply lost its face. The fact that the party that they were supporting in Taiwan, they were intimidating the Taiwanese nation, backfired. The Taiwanese basically voted a candidate that China perceived to be secessionist. So China's lost face. So China's, of course, in reacting in this, very irrational manner. So my advice is allow China to cool its temper, because we have to understand, as a bilateral partner, in the Asian context, once you lose face, that is simply so embarrassing. So let's just continue what we're doing and let China basically China allow the steam to simmer over. Because at this point in time, China has nothing good to do but, of course, to basically lash out of countries after, of course, it suffer a humiliating setback with the victory of Vice President Lai.
Okay, so you're saying then allow the Chinese to cool down, to simmer down all this hot-headedness that they have. But could this also, on the flip side, escalate tensions when we send these resupply missions to Ayungin Shoal? Could we see further bullying tactics?
Based on my calculation, China will be focused more on Taiwan. They will have to. China is planning a lot of things, a lot of very nasty coercive action against Taiwan, of course, prior to the inauguration of Vice President Tsai in May. So probably this might give us a certain breather. China would be concerned with a lot of issues in the first island chain. The resupply mission, of course, that's happening at Ayungin Shoal, efforts to coerce and intimidate again Taiwan after, of course, it lost face, and also steering again the tension in the Senkaku Dayahu Islands, sending, of course, its Coast Guard vessels right into Japanese territorial waters in the Senkaku Islands. So China is simply creating a lot of enemies at this point in time. First, my position as a sovereign head of state, he's entitled to do so. His perspective is congratulating the victory because of the fact that we have a common interest with Taiwan. We still have people-to-people relations with Taiwan. We have the very vibrant economic relations with Taiwan. We have 200,000 Filipinos working in Taiwan. And of course, the Philippines and Taiwan are both democracies. And in a way, his congratulations to Vice President Lai is, of course, a recognition of the fact that there was a successful democratic process that, of course, happened in Taiwan. As in any other democracy, this is something that we would have to be proud of and happy.
And Professor,
so I don't think there's any violation of the One China policy.
And despite his congratulatory remark, the President also reaffirmed the country's One China policy.
Yes, of course. The One China policy provides to people relationship. There's no problem. Again, let's try to dissect the notion of One China policy. China is making it appear that the One China policy has been, of course, written on stone. But in reality, we have to look at the context of the One China policy. The One China policy have two elements. Number one, of course, is the fact, supposed to be, that there's one official China. And the second element, of course, is that Taiwan is a province or integral part of China. That is basically what we call the Shanghai Communique, which China, of course, introduced during a time of President Nixon's visit to China in the early 70s. Not even the United States automatically accepted the whole formula. So several countries in the world accept the fact that, number one, they accept the fact that China, of course, is the official China. There's only one China. But a number of countries also reject the second part, that Taiwan is a province of China. The United States, although the United States accept the One China policy, but of course the United States does not accept that Taiwan is a province of China. Japan and other European countries basically do away.
Professor,
so you might have China's formulation of One China policy, but there's several interpretations of what the One China policy.
All right, several interpretations of the One China policy. And the Chinese foreign ministry even suggests that our president read more books, to properly understand the ins and outs of the Taiwan issue so as to draw the right conclusions. Is this another bullying tactic of the Chinese government?
And isn't this also disrespecting books?
Isn't this also insulting the president?
Insulting and humiliating, basically by telling us that we're ignorant. If our president, of course, the president, I assume, reads a lot of books. If he would read so much books on the issue of China, then of course he would be able to understand the context of the One China policy, and more so, be able, of course, to understand the fact that there are actually several interpretations of the One China policy in Europe. Just look at what's happening in Europe. You have, of course, an incident that happened, Lithuania. basically deviated from the very strict interpretation of China One policy when they allowed the Taiwan Taipei Economic Office in their capital in Riga to put the embassy of the Republic of China. Automatically, of course, China got angry at Lithuania. Lithuania said, this is our interpretation of the One China policy. So countries are still sovereign on how they would interpret the One China policy. China has no right to impose one interpretation of the One China policy.
So Professor, what
Ngayon, ikaw, bilang Pilipino, ano ang masasabi mo at reaksyon sa balitang ito? Mag-iwan ka ng komento sa ibaba at atin pong babasahin isa-isa.